Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Kicking It with Coach K podcast. I am your host, Coach K. This is episode 31. I am here with Mike. Mike, I don't want to say your last name wrong. Is it Torchia?
It's Torchia.
Torchia? All right, got you. That's why I wanted to give you a chance to say it there, and I didn't want to say it wrong. We appreciate you coming on the show today. Um,
Uh,
I'm gonna I'm gonna give Mike a chance to talk about his story and a little bit of his background here in a minute. I don't want to speak for him on that. You accomplished a lot in your career at a very, very high level, at the highest level. So I think, I'd rather have you share that with us. We're going to go over just a couple sponsors and a couple things here before we jump in, Mike. This show is brought to you guys by Brain Jerk Entertainment and Kennedy Health and Wellness. Welcome to the Brain Jerk era. These guys are involved in everything from community events to different things within charity events in the community as well. And then also, of course, all the podcast content. They've got wrestling content, sports content. They've, of course, got the Monday morning show with Josh. They've got all types of stuff going on. I'm telling you guys, they are expanding and evolving right now. There's some things that are getting ready to start. I can't say too much yet, but just stay tuned as they got some stuff in the works over here at Brain Jerk Entertainment. Kennedy Health and Wellness, your one-stop shop for everything wellness, from body care to candles. Again, we are in full fall swing. With my wife and our business. We're out at Krebs Apple Barn right now in LaSalle, Michigan. We are also available on KennedyHealthWellness.com. So whether you're looking for, your apple or your autumn scents or your pumpkin, whatever you're looking for, we've got just more simple quality, just more of a natural ingredient we use within our products. Make sure you check us out. We have several sponsors of the show that we want to give some love to. As always, they're big time pillars within our community, big time, just not just important for this show, like I always say, as they are important for the student athletes in our community as well. And again, just us on this show and Brain Jerk Entertainment and everything we do. So Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, the Little Brown Jug, Lane's Pizzeria, IWR, Nerdy Designs, All Heart Athletics, Monroe County Sports Network, 1817 CrossFit, Big Back Prep, Back Road Baggers. So again, shout out to all these different businesses and people and platforms for supporting us, supporting our student athletes, and again, supporting our community. Great people and great businesses. Quote of the day: it's going to be a journey. It's not a sprint to get in shape. And that's by Carrie Walsh Jennings. She was a professional volleyball player, but again, anything you're trying to accomplish at the highest level or do at an elite level, you have to do it little by little, day by day. It's not something that's going to be complete within, a straight shot of a race or a quick, shortcut or anything like that. It's always going to be a climb. It's always going to be a steady fight to get better and continue to work every day to get towards that goal. So that's why we chose that quote. Right along with that, man, the reason I choose the quotes and the different stuff we do here on the show is because we think in some way it pertains to the person we bring on, right? And somebody who makes it to the level you did and has the longevity within the sport means you were doing something within a mindset that just made you go to work every day, just made you do what was needed. So that's why we chose the quote, along with our read of the day, which is the 1% Rule by Tommy Baker. Again, just a book about doing the small things, doing the details, and then building up good day after good day, building it up month after month, year after year, and so forth. But it starts with the details. My man, so we want to jump in, but just to start, before we start asking you some questions, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I grew up in Toronto, Ontario. Played all my minor hockey there. Moved up to Kitchener, played my junior hockey for the Kitchener Rangers. Fortunate enough to be drafted by the Minnesota North Stars at the time, and played one season with them before we moved down to Dallas. And spent a lot of my time in the minors and trying to work your way up to get an opportunity in the big leagues and get an opportunity to play there. And from there, went over to Europe for a few years, played some hockey over there. And that's about it as far as the journey goes.
Yeah, man. I mean, I looked up, so I always look up our guests, right, and try to see like, see what their background is and kind of, what they were able to accomplish and where they played, and just kind of even come up with certain questions and different things. And I seen like your journey is one of never stop fighting. It seems like, just to me, like one where it was like it didn't matter where it took you, you were never gonna quit, kind of fighting for that end goal that you ended up did actually reach. And obviously we have some, for the fans, we have some cards on the table here, and these can even show them. But this stuff right here, man, is awesome. And so, and that's just, again, for me, looking at your journey and then what you just said, it's like, to me, that's somebody who just never had a thought of quitting and was always going to continue to fight and take opportunities wherever you could get them to grow, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? It's there's a lot of days where you feel defeated, you feel like you're beat up and everything else, but you got to find it in you to kind of continue and keep going because there's nothing better, and there's no better feeling than that end result of achieving that goal.
Did you ever think about quitting along
Oh
that
God,
journey?
yeah. You know what? If you
Well,
don't, there's times where it goes through your head almost daily. Why am I doing this? What's going on? And you remember why, and the feeling you get at certain times that make you appreciate the game so much. But when you look back at the journey a long time afterward, I tell you, it's so worth it.
that's awesome, man. That was going to be my next question, is what, and you answered it right within there, was, well, what was it that made you continue to fight every day? Just because we have a lot of listeners that are either young athletes on this show, whether it's collegiate, young pros, or whether it's a lot of high school athletes, middle school. And just for them to hear that, to continue on the days when you hate it, even on the days when it's not the most fun, when it's days when you're dragging, to continue to just do it and get through it for the end result, for that glory, because you still love it at the end of the day. I love that, man. I love that message right off the bat.
Oh yeah, it's so worth it. I'll tell you, running with 50-pound sandbags on your back and doing all the stupid things that feel stupid at the time, so worth it in the end. And you learn to appreciate it afterwards.
Tell me about that 50-pound sandbag training. Is that what we're talking about here?
Oh yeah, running hills with 50-pound sandbags just to work the core strength and get
Yeah.
the legs going, and it was crazy. There was some crazy stuff. I remember the one time in Washington, Jim Schoenfeld was our coach, and he was right into the fitness part of the game. And we just finished on the ice, and then all of a sudden, throw the 25-pound sand vest on. Let's go. We're going into the gym, or we're going outside to run sprints in 90-degree heat.
Oh,
And it was crazy, but so worth it.
but yep, and that's a great message, because, like you said, it makes you better, and all those moments are important to that journey. We had somebody on here who said, he was a coach, a girls basketball coach, highly successful here in the state of Michigan. And he said, to change situations or to get to where you're trying to go, you have to change it. You have to be willing to push things to different levels and different places that you've never pushed them before. And that's kind of that same message there too. I love that. Mike, who did you look up to growing up?
Oh man, you know what? There's so many guys. Like being a hockey player, being a goalie. I was a huge, fan of the Bruins. I always loved watching the old Jerry Cheevers, the Pete Peters, and then later on, you get to watch a guy like Patrick Waugh come up and do it with Montreal Canadiens. Guys like that. You always admire the goalies, and fun watching them. But other great athletes as well. I love all sports, whether it's baseball, football, hockey. I watch everything and enjoy watching everything. And there's so many inspirational guys. I got a chance to be in Toronto for a couple of World Series and watching those guys. Watching some great football players, guys like I'm a Cowboys fan, but I grew up watching the days of Tony Dorsett and Roger Staubach down there and loving that. So, the fun times, and there's people you admire for the things they did and how they did it and the way they reacted and how they acted as people.
Absolutely. I love that. And just that last point you just touched on just tells me that you drew something from those people. Because I think it's important, especially for the young generation, Mike, like they're so, they're so influenced by people, especially with cell phones. So I think it's important. Every guest we ask that question to, because I think it's so important to have young people hear who the people who are very successful, high moral, high character people, who are they watching when they were growing up? So that's why we always I love that you hit it on that point at the end. We always ask that question just because young people, I think, need to see the type, not the necessarily the level of athlete, but the type of people that we were watching and the type of inspiration we drew from, whether it was just them being gutsy, whether it was the things they did within their communities, whatever it may be, like you just touched on, just things they did as people, which we draw from. I love that, man. That's incredible. So you touched on something here, and I don't want to forget this question. So Josh is our producer here at Brain Jerk, and he tells me that goalies traditionally are known for being kind of a little bit on
Weird.
the odd side, weird.
They're
Yep.
weird.
Yep, that's what he tells.
Absolutely.
So my question is, what about you, or what can you tell us about you that makes you a little bit odd, a little bit weird?
You know what? If you ask most of the guys I play with, I was one of the normal goalies. So that doesn't say a whole lot. But, it's one of those things, you just do things differently. Your mindset is different from every day, like from everything you do. I remember my game day preparation was totally different. It started, for me, my game day, if I knew I was playing, would start in the morning right away, right when I woke up, almost routine. What you do in the morning, what you do at your pregame skate, how you get dressed, how you nap, how you do everything. It just became a total routine, and those were the good days, and it was fun to do it. And you look back and you made yourself actually think you're crazy, but it just seemed normal at the time.
So is that true though? Then the whole thing, I'm assuming you just confirmed that goalies tend to be a little bit on the odd side. As I
Oh
just got
man,
a thumbs up from our producer Josh as he walked in and said, "Told you."
that's not even the half of it. Like I said, I'm one of the normal guys. I played with some goalies who did some really whacked out things, and I couldn't even begin to tell you how crazy some of them were. I had guys who used to talk to the goalpost, talk to their equipment before they even put it on. It was some weird stuff. I considered myself a little bit normal compared to them.
So I guess just to kind of tap into it a little more, is some of that stuff like, because I've also heard that hockey players are pretty superstitious. Is that like part of that? And do you have is there anything that you were superstitious about?
Oh God, you know what? I remember my first NHL game. Uh, we were sitting in Detroit, or we had played in Detroit the night before,
Oh
and
wow.
we were down in Chicago, and getting ready to play the Hawks the next day. And at breakfast time, Bob Gainey comes in and tells me I'm starting my first NHL game. So you know what? You're so nervous. I'm like, oh man, I got to get to the rink. I got to get ready. I got to get prepared. So it was a 2 o'clock in the afternoon game. I packed up. We were staying down at the Drake Hotel down in Chicago. I packed up so quick, I forgot to put socks on. Went to the game, no socks on, and middle of winter time, of course.
Right.
And sure enough, have a good game. 2-1 game. We win in Chicago. So you think I wore socks for the next 5 or 6 games? No chance. So stupid things like that.
No,
It
I
was
love
funny
it.
because there was actually an article in the USA Today about that. They talked about that and how I didn't wear socks, so I went without socks for the next few games.
I love that, man. I'm gonna have to find that so I can share that. That's incredible. We had a boxer, Bronco McCart. He was a former champion. He's from Monroe. We had him on, and it was funny because he said the same thing. He said like if he didn't have this certain pair of underwear on during the fight, he felt like he was lost. Like he needed that to have that certain pair of underwear on and have a certain pre-fight ritual and same thing. So it's awesome to like, you know what I mean? Because I know it because I'm around sports, but just so people know, like people in sports when it comes to superstitions, like we're a little nuts. And even myself, like I'm a high school football coach. And I do all types of other stuff as far as coaching goes. But man, I'm the same way. I'm like, this is how Friday has to go for me. It's got to go this way. It can't go any other way.
Well, people don't even realize. Think of the guys. Like, think of a guy like Michael Jordan wore his UNC shorts under his basketball shorts for how many years in Chicago, stuff like that. It just it kind of blows you away to think of how many guys do it. But it seems wacky at the time, but it's something that you just take with you and you keep it as your routine and your thing. And some people, when you talk about it, don't understand. But it's good to see that there's other people that do the same thing.
Definitely. No, definitely. You got to be in those shoes. You have to be in those shoes to just to tap back. So you guys said, around this area, we're obviously big Red Wings fans. Most of our community here, a lot of our listeners in this area, and a lot of our kind of constant listeners of the show are going to be a lot of Red Wings fans. And you said you played in Detroit. What was that like? What was that experience like playing against them guys? Because those were obviously some legendary teams during those years.
That was a scary group, man. That was, when you look at the group they had there, the Stanley Cups they were winning at that time, and that team, and I had some friends on that team, guys like Chris Draper and Darren McCarty, Kirk Maltby. You look at that team and you sit there and think, that whole third line, they were considered their third line or the grind line. Those guys in junior were all like unbelievable hockey players and great goal scorers, but somehow Scotty got them to buy into the system there, buy into the fact that this is the way you guys are going to play. Those guys were almost like 50 goal scorers in junior, all of them, and they bought into that third line role, and that's what made Detroit so successful, the ability to adapt. And they had depth that most teams didn't have at the time, especially, and it's because of guys like that made them win. And great goaltending. They had the Vernons, the Osgood was unbelievable there, and these guys were great for Detroit. But when you have guys like Scotty Bowman behind the bench, and other great coaches, and but the main guy is the guy who stirred the drink there, the straw that stirred the drink. Stevie Yzerman was just unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. He was so him and D-Mac were and that was like a lot of people around here, but they were like my two favorite wings growing up. So you said you're friends with a couple of guys. We have some connections to D-Mac here as well. So what's it like? Do you and D-Mac still talk? Are you guys still buddies today, or what's that like?
Whenever you see each other, you hang out, but right. You can't lose contact after all the years. But a lot of guys, guys like him and other guys who play in different spots, they end up staying down there. Like I know Draper still lives down there, and Maltby still lives down there. So, some of them even work for the Red Wings now. So, it's tough. And that's the great thing about hockey. You go to these alumni events and you pick up like you haven't seen each other in 15 years, and you pick up like it was yesterday. But Darren McCarty and Jr. was probably one of the scariest guys to play against, just because he could hurt you he could hurt you on the score sheet, but he could hurt you with his fist too. And he was a tough man, but one of the great guys off the ice as well.
Oh man, incredible. So actually right where I'm sitting in the other room, I had the pleasure of sitting here one night and talking with D-Mac, and the guys at Brain Jerk have had the pleasure of hanging out with him and talking to him multiple times. And, they have a pretty good friendship with him. But I had a conversation with him for about an hour one day, man, and I could have listened to him for another 5. I mean, just genuine, the way he was just the way he was explaining things, explaining how to treat people, explaining the world. Like he's just a genuine dude. And I that was such a great conversation. That's why I had to definitely ask that. Obviously we're all big fans of D-Mac around here, but that's incredible, man. Tell me this, cause I saw you were drafted. What was draft night like for you?
Oh man. It was, it's one of those surreal experiences. Like you sit there, with your family, and like you grew up a hockey fan and everything else. So my draft year, we were in Buffalo in Buffalo, which is only about an hour and a half from my home in Toronto, where I grew up. And you sit there, your family's there, and everyone's there, and you get drafted. And at that time, I was drafted by the North Stars, and the GM was Bobby Clark at the time. You remember watching the old Broad Street Bullies in Philadelphia and everything else, and then you come down and you're greeted by Bob Gainey, who is a Hall of Famer in his own right,
Yeah.
and a guy you watch with the Canadians win multiple Stanley Cups and be known as one of the greatest all-time defensive forwards to play the game. And these are guys you kind of watched and idolized and everything else. Then all of a sudden you're sitting there and shaking hands with them and welcoming you to their team, and excited for this. But it's really, really one of those feelings. It's kind of like an out of body experience to experience that and get into that. And it's such a cool feeling and a cool experience that I'll never forget.
I was gonna say it's almost got to be surreal, almost like shocking in a way to be at that level, especially to like probably talk to people that you idolized growing up and looked up to, and then to be there. That had to be such an amazing experience. Mike, when did you start to understand and feel that you could play this game at the highest level? Like when was it that it clicked in your mind or started to click to everybody? I was like, okay, I can do this.
I think really when I was in junior, coming up, and as a kid, you come up and you get drafted to the Ontario Hockey League or the OHL, and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. I got a chance, and then you get invited to different things and different events, and you're like, obviously I'm pretty good. So I think my third and fourth year in the OHL, I got invited to the World Junior camps, and I go to the World Junior team, and the four goalies there are myself, Trevor Kidd, Martin Brodeur, and Felix Potvin, all guys who, had pretty good careers in the NHL. But who's the first goalie cut? Marty Brodeur, who struggled, and he's probably one of the all-time great goalies ever play in the NHL, in a great system in New Jersey. But you look back at those moments and you sit there and say, okay, I think I can play at this level, and I think I can be at this level. So there's definitely opportunities there. But I think really when I was about 17, 18 and started to get the invites and everything else, that's when it kind of kicked in.
Gotcha. So it was pretty young though that you were like, okay, I can probably do this. Even at 17, I mean, some guys, at least in football, know they might be a pro. It's some five-star guys that are, just athletic and crazy, crazy big. But to know at 17 you were kind of leveling up with people, that's pretty awesome, man. How did you going through the pros? Actually, let me ask this first. What was Dallas like?
Oh man, you know what? Dallas, for your first NHL experience was pretty cool. It's because I think you could lose yourself down there without being in the spotlight, because the Cowboys had really good teams at that time. They were just getting ready to win back-to-back Super Bowls. So we had moved down there at the perfect time. You could get lost on page 30 of the sports page, and no one really knew who you were except for the hockey fans. And that was the opportunity to grow the game and grow the sport down there. And you know, you got down there and you're sitting there and behind the net. Who's sitting behind your net but Troy Aikman and Daryl Johnson at every game, watching the game. So it was kind of cool in that way. But Dallas was such a great city, a fun city to be down in. And really their first experience with the NHL was when we moved down there. So it was a great to be a part of it. And it started to showcase some guys. I think a guy like Detroit native Mike Modano, his career kind of, although he was going to be a great one anyhow, but his career kind of, he became that household name down there, up on billboards with Troy Aikman and guys like that. There's Mike Modano right next to him. So those are that's when you kind of knew. But Dallas was such a beautiful city.
Tell me about this, man, just because this just popped in my head. All these different places you went, do you have how many meaningful relationships do you still have from all these different places today?
Oh, quite a few. There's, quite a few guys from Thunder Bay, guys from over in Europe I played with. You sit and you chat, and my oldest boy is playing University of Windsor, Ontario, over there, not too far from you, and he goes up to Thunder Bay to play against Lakehead University. Went down to play against Michigan last year in an exhibition game. But my buddies go watch him. They go sit down and they talk to him. And all the guys I used to play with, hey, I went to see your son. And they'd sit there and tell him stories. And he goes, man, you know a lot of people. And I go, hockey world's a small world, and you get to meet a lot of people. And there's always a connection. It's kind of like that 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon type thing.
That's pretty cool, man. I love to hear that. Do you so are you involved with hockey today in any way, or are you just a spectator fan?
Oh man, you know what? When I first retired, I came back here to Kitchener. I did about 5 years on TV and about 3 years on the radio, working for the Kitchener Rangers, the junior team here. I coached a couple different levels and everything else, but right now I just help out in minor hockey here in just outside Kitchener, and I help out with some minor hockey teams. I coach some junior teams. Just stay in the game, have fun. Still run a bit of a goalie clinic for some kids.
Okay.
But it's more entertainment than anything else, just to stay on the ice and have fun with it.
Stay around it. What man, you seem like you have a deep love for it. When did you start playing hockey? At what age? When did you start really loving hockey, I guess?
You know what? I never, like, when I was growing up in Toronto, the only reason I even got a chance to try hockey is because my cousin was playing at a pretty high level. So my dad used to love going to watch the game. So, I was 4 years old, and he's dragging me around the rinks trying to watch my cousin, and kind of fell in love with the game. And then, so as my first 3-4 years of hockey, I played as a player, and then our goalie doesn't show up one day. So I volunteered to go in net and played pretty well. The next thing I knew, I was a starting goalie on the team. So it was really bizarre, but I fell in love with the game as soon as I those first couple of days, it's really hard. Like everything else, right? It's hard to get up there and skate, and you see everyone else around you moving around on the ice. And I don't know if it just made me more determined to be able to keep up with them or to catch them and do whatever I had to do. But as soon as I did, then I was like, okay, I want to be better than you. I want to be the best I can be. And that really pushed me. I was always in that mindset, yeah, you think you're good. I want to be better. And that was my mindset right from a young age. I remember being that competitive. Man, you know what? I play cornhole now and I'm competitive, and people think I'm crazy. So it's one of those things. It's like, I don't like to lose. I don't want to lose. And if I can beat you, I want to beat you on the golf course. It doesn't matter. I want to win.
See, I'm a firm believer that, like, sports and people are at our core, like, we love to be, a lot of us, or at least we were this way, and society obviously has went through some changes and different things, but we're competitors at heart. And that's what sports were made for too. And so, like, for me, I'm the same way, man. Like, I say, like, I have a daughter. She's about to turn 10, right? But I tell her, like, I love you. I'm still not letting you win when we go play putt-putt. Like, I'm not letting you beat me in bowling. You're gonna have to learn how to get better and end up beating me, because I'm not letting you win, especially at this age. Definitely not. You're gonna have to learn. And I know that might sound cold, but I'm like, hey, I'm competitive, and all it's gonna do is make her work harder and try harder to get better. So that's just kind of how I look at that. Mike, were you involved with anything else growing up in any other sport or any other, like, consistent hobby that you had growing up, or that maybe you've had throughout life?
Oh man, I played baseball till right when I signed my pro contract. I was a baseball player, loved the game, loved the ball. I played with some really good ball players too. Our ball team in Toronto, we had two guys that actually played in the majors. One guy was drafted in the majors, but one of our good friends is now the bullpen catcher for the Blue Jays. He's a guy who's scholarship to Seton Hall and drafted by the Padres in I think that was 13th round. Great ball player, just absolute cannon for an arm. And then he hurt his shoulder playing, I think, a double-A ball. So now he's just the bullpen catcher for the Jays. Alex Andriopoulos played with Richie Butler, loved baseball. So, is Richie and Rob Butler, who played in Tampa Bay and in Toronto for a bit. Both guys, those are guys that I grew up with, playing ball with, playing hockey with, and you just learn to. I loved every sport, didn't matter, but now I have a love for golf, and I never golfed till I was 18 years old. Never picked up a golf club, and now I could play every day if you let me.
I love that. No, golf, and I feel like golf gets more relaxing and enticing as you get older. I feel like
It's still competitive.
definitely. Don't want to lose, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's like I can just focus and breathe and take good shots, and it's not 1,000 miles an hour.
It's relaxing. I find it relaxing.
It is, definitely. While still competitive, definitely. Mike, how did you balance hockey with everything else, especially as a professional?
You know what? It's your job at first, right? Like that's your job, and the great thing about hockey is a lot of times, on non-game days, you have a lot of time to yourself because half the time your day's done by noon. By noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, your day's done. So you find the time there to do the things you want to do and think you should be doing, right? It was the game days. And during the season, and I found the season sometimes to be too short because I just loved the game and wanted to keep playing. But sometimes it's a grind. Those 80-game seasons, and you get to the end of it, and your body's sore, your body hurts, and you think, oh man, I got to take at least a month off. And like a week into it, you're like, okay, when am I back on the ice? You just got that. You got that competitive drive in you. You just want to get back out there and get better and win.
No, I definitely know that feeling. I go through that with coaching where I'm the same way.
Yeah.
As soon as the season ends, I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I need a break. And then a couple weeks after that break starts, I'm like, yeah, we probably got to get back in the weight room so that we can, get ready for this next season coming up.
Yeah, I think it's different once you have kids. I think it changes a little bit once you have kids, and then you start to realize, okay, I got someone I got to look after, someone I got to take care of, and you start to dedicate more of your time there too. But then you think, well, hockey's my job at that time, right? And the hard part is letting go of that when you're a little older.
No, I definitely agree with you. Definitely agree with you. It's hard, man, because especially at that level, a lot of stuff demands so much of us. That's why, like, even like I'll bring my daughter to practice with me sometimes, just because I'm like, this is the only way we may spend any time together, and at least we got like the 25-minute drive. When the kids are taking water breaks, I'll check in with her and different things. So at least we get some kind of presence together. She likes to go run around the field and do different things. So it's one of those things where it's like, I try to get them involved as much as I can. As far as that goes. Mike, hockey is hockey in Canada like football or baseball is here as far as popularity?
You know what? I've been down in the States and I've seen the Friday Night Lights and everything else down in Texas and everything else and how crazy high school football is. But hockey here is, I'd say, equivalent to that. Like it's just, the difference is, obviously we don't have the population you guys have down there, but definitely, you're starting to see it with the diversity in hockey and more people from other countries. Canada is very open and welcoming to many countries, but you're starting to see the ethnic diversity in hockey a little more, especially at a younger age. A lot more different ethnicities trying the game and falling in love with the game that we've loved since day one.
That's amazing though, right? Because that means the sport's growing, and that means it's going to grow within different regions of the world. It's going to grow within different kids getting opportunities, right? Like that's so. In your opinion, do you say hockey's like a growing sport?
I think globally, yes, comparatively. Like, when you think football and baseball, there's certain countries that baseball's big, right? Like you look at Japan, you look at the U.S., and those countries, it's baseball. Cuba, those countries, Korea, those are the countries that just absolutely love the game. You're seeing that grow. Like, but when you think of countries, like hockey's been always been known as Canada plays, US plays, there's Russia, Finland, Sweden. You have your big countries, but now you're starting to see it grow. You see more and more kids getting drafted out of Germany, which haven't been a perennial a strong power in the hockey world. You're seeing kids out of Denmark, out of Norway. We even saw a kid out of Britain get drafted uh, last year, 2 years ago, by the Arizona Coyotes. So you're seeing it grow worldwide. It's kind of like, we look at our basketball program up here in Canada, and it's basically non-existent. But now all of a sudden, we got a whole bunch of NBAers playing on our national basketball team, and hey, you know what? They're not bad. So it's kind of like an eye-opening experience. Like as much as it's growing down there, it's growing here as well. So
That's very positive. Yeah, that's definitely positive. I love hearing that. Definitely. Because I know, tell me about that. So what when you were in Dallas, did you catch a couple high school games or what's that about?
oh, you know what? I wish I would have gone out to one. It was one of those. My first experience with it. It was my first week getting called up, and I'm sitting there going. We were coming home from a game. We had just played. I can't remember who we had just played. It was a Friday night game in Dallas, and I'm like, why the hell is there all this traffic here? And up ahead, you can see the lights in the stadium, and I'm like, the guy goes, well, there's probably about 30,000 people there watching the high school football game. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And like the stadiums were incredible. It was like our Canadian CFL stadiums down there for high school football, and it was incredible. Like honest to God, I've never experienced anything like that. And then you pick up the sports page, you're all excited to read about your game. Well, in Dallas, you get the first 10 pages are Cowboys, then you get the Texas Rangers, the Mavericks, then you get the high school football, you get the Texas A&Ms, you get the TCUs, Texas Christians, and everything else down there. And then on the back page, there's a little blurb about the Dallas Stars. So, you just kind of learn to accept it, but that's just the reality down there. It was awesome. So it was a fun town to be in, but that's the reality, man. They love their football down there, and it's cool to watch it.
So I love that you shared that, but just because so obviously I coach high school football. I'm a big football guy. I've never been down there to catch a game. I've obviously I have friends in the coaching world who are from Texas, who coach down in Texas. And I actually know a guy who was in in the same league that the Permian Panthers, Friday Night Lights, same league that they were in. And so I've always heard the stories, but to hear somebody firsthand say, that's like something I've never seen before. That's incredible to hear, man.
Oh,
Uh,
it was unbelievable.
Out of curiosity, what is going to a game during the CFL? Like, what's that like?
Depends which team you go see.
Okay.
Like it's one of those things. Very big out west. The Calgary Stampeders, they have a pretty loyal following. The Edmonton Eskimos, Saskatchewan has got their watermelon heads out there, so they're pretty cool. And then Toronto and Hamilton has their own songs they play and sing and chant. But it's definitely, I'll compare CFL. It's kind of like hockey in the U.S. in a place like Carolina. It's got its cult following. It's got its 30,000 strong, and they follow it religiously. And then
Yeah.
other than that, it's an afterthought. So,
Gotcha.
so there's definitely places like that, and there's a lot of regions like that in the U.S. for hockey in the NHL. Like, I remember when the Carolina Hurricanes moved down there from Hartford, it was definitely a cult following. You had your 15 to 20,000 loyal guys, and they were always there. But that's kind of like the CFL up here.
Definitely understand that. So to get back on hockey real quick, just to continue, couple questions here. We have
Sure.
a question or request here, and I just want to put it out there. What was the difference between playing here and playing in Europe? Like, what were some of the differences?
Oh man, the one thing about Europe, it's very laid back. It's a very laid back season. Like playing here, your 84 game season, it's physically on your body, it's taxing. It kind of beats you up, it kind of wears you out. It's basically tries to separate the men from the boys, as they used to say. And it was a long grind on the ice almost every day. Europe was kind of like the European siesta. I remember waking up my first year over in Europe and everything's closed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, what the hell do you mean I can't go get milk? I need milk for my house. Everything's closed. You got to wait till 3 o'clock. So they kind of, it's a family thing. Yeah, you go home, you have lunch with your family, you have a nap, and you go back to work for the rest of the day in the afternoon. It's very laid back. You play much shorter seasons. I will say there's some crazy spots to play over in Europe. It's almost like watching a soccer game in some of the arenas. They're setting off flares, they're chanting, they're singing like it's the soccer, like
Really?
the World Soccer Games over there. So, they they chant and they sing songs about the players. They sing songs about the other team. It's kind of a cool atmosphere over there, but very bizarre when you see them setting off flares inside the arena and you can't see anything except the puck coming at you. It's definitely different.
So what drew you to go over there? Was it just opportunity, or what was it? Was it some of the customs, or what?
For me, with my background, my dad never put on a pair of skates in his life. My dad played professional soccer over in Italy before moving to Canada. So he was, I grew up in soccer, loved the game, but he never put on a pair of skates. So I had an opportunity to go over and play in Italy, and it's something I always wanted to do: experience the culture, go back to the land my parents grew up in, and get an experience of that. So I took that opportunity, went over there for a couple of years, and had a blast over there. It was met some great people, met some wonderful people over there. Most of my teammates were either Canadians or Americans, and so you keep in touch with those guys too over there. So a lot of fun we had over there.
I love that, man. That's incredible. To continue on hockey, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people always ask questions about hockey and how this works. So for those who might not know, tell us about, like, how does this fighting thing happen in hockey, and were you a part of any, or did you get to witness anything good throughout your time?
I've witnessed so many crazy things with fighting. You know what? It's so funny because we were just talking about this the other day. We are talking about you know how you put hockey sticks in two guys' hands and they want to beat the crap out of each other, but after the game they'll be sitting next to each other at the bar, and
I was to say,
they won't even mention the fact that they just fought out there. It's that competitiveness. You get out there and tempers just flare, the emotions get going, the testosterone, I don't know what you want to call it. It just gets to that point, and fights happen. And when you hear people say it's just part of the game, it really is. It's not. There's no bitterness in it. It's just the competitiveness of the guys in the game. And I hate the fact that we're trying to take it out of the game, because so much of it just happens. It really does just happen. And there's so many stories behind it that it's one of those things where why are you trying to take out a piece of the tradition that made this game what it is and what's great about it? And I'm sure Darren McCarty DMAC would probably say the same thing.
that's right. So what, out of curiosity, what would you say to the people then who say it's to make the game safer? you think it actually does that, or do you think that's just kind of BS because we've been doing this forever? And
You know what? This game, how do you make this game safer? It's one of the fastest games in the world. It's
right,
played on ice with these metal blades that could cut glass, that could cut right through you. And the guys are bigger, stronger, and faster than they've ever been now. The equipment's lighter. The equipment's better than it's ever been. These guys are faster and better shape.
it's a
There's
gladiator.
going to be high speed contact. It's irrelevant. I guarantee you there's been more injuries from guys getting hit with their head down or in the head by a guy who's not trying to hurt them, but just hitting them clean than there has been in fights. So I don't know if fighting is going to make it different.
That absolutely makes sense to me. I wasn't, I don't disagree with you. I just, that's obviously what they're going to, it's kind of like the football thing. Like they make a lot
Yeah.
of rules in football today to make the game safer. But then I watch games on Saturdays and Sundays where I'm like, there's a huge gray area. What's good, what's okay, what's not. And also there's a lot of plays where this is actually not making the game any safer. So no, I feel the same way about football as you do about hockey, to be honest.
But like think of football too. Like how many times have they tried to change that helmet to make it concussion proof and safer for concussions and everything else, right? You're trying to take that out of the game. Well, unfortunately, the problem with the game is everyone's just bigger, faster, and stronger than they were that long ago. And everything's happening at a higher pace, higher speed out there. And when you see that's when injuries do happen.
No, I definitely agree with you 1,000% on that. So here's we always do like a kind of we call it our barbershop conversation. When you go into a barbershop, it's always just a bunch of guys talking sports, right? Talking maybe a little politics mixed in, some sports, sharing some stories about the week. But and I had this conversation on Facebook a couple weeks ago with a friend actually, but is hockey the most difficult sport to play in your opinion? If so, why? If not, which one is?
I think hockey would be second.
Okay, interesting. Behind what?
Golf.
Really?
To hit a golf ball consistently the way the pros do is absolutely insane. Definitely hockey for a team game, it'd be extremely difficult to play. Number one, just to be comfortable and able to skate on the ice on those little blades and, be able to move as fast as these guys are going out there now and to read the play and to see how quick things happen. I watch hockey now and I think, wow, it's incredible to watch some of these guys. I watch this Connor McDavid go out there and do what he does in Edmonton, and it's just mind blowing at the speed he does it with. And I'm so glad I'm not playing against him ever. You see how fast and how fast he makes things around him happen. But it's definitely I'd say for a team sport, there's probably nothing harder than hockey. You can always teach someone how to run drills or block a guy or do something, but to do it on blades at that speed, I think would be very difficult for most normal people. Now, there's some things about every sport that are hard.
Right.
Don't question me. Don't judge me on that. But I think hockey has its own set of difficulties that would make it hard for the normal person.
So the next level, I just want to ask, I'll make this just a tad bit harder before we move on. So, because a lot of us will say, and obviously, you talked about consistency in golf, but a lot of people say like an NFL quarterback is the hardest, or, this position in baseball. Where would you rank goalie? Maybe not exactly, but like, where would you put being a professional goalie? Would that be near the top?
Oh God, yeah. It's right up there with being a quarterback in the NFL.
See,
except we don't get paid. We don't get paid $50 million though.
That's facts.
Goalies get beat up and everything else, and quarterbacks now you can't touch them anymore. You blow on them and you get a penalty. So it, that drives me nuts. But I
100%.
miss the days of watching Joe Theismann getting his leg broke. No, I don't miss that part. That was one of the worst injuries I've ever seen. But you miss the days of watching guys try to get to the quarterback, and you're trying to, when a sack was a sack. Now you put your arms around the guy and the whistle goes. So they're definitely protected now. And
Get past it.
it's I think it's true, but it's I think hockey, it's up there. Being a goalie, the pressure, you get in there and you go into the opposing team, and I'll compare it to, I'll go off my experience in college hockey. So you walk into Michigan State or you go into Michigan, and that student section, it's
Oh,
relentless. Like,
oh,
you're sitting there as the other team goalie, and you're just taking a beating right from the get go. And if those goalies tell you, I don't listen, I can't hear it, that's BS. You
relax.
hear every word of it.
Yeah.
and you're mentally defeated by the time you leave.
I've been to some Michigan hockey games, and their crowds are pretty intense. There was a couple chants going on. I went with my sister a handful of years ago to see Michigan play Ohio State in hockey, and obviously that's a traditional rival, and that
Yeah.
was quite the experience. And I heard quite the chants from the crowd that night, and was like, to a point, because I'm used to going to football games. To a point, I was like kind of stunned. Like, I'm not used to hearing this. This doesn't happen at football games, but it damn sure happened at the hockey game.
Oh,
It was,
yeah.
yeah, pretty relentless that night.
You get called everything from ugly to a sieve to, it's just terrible.
That's crazy, man.
It's all right when you're on the bench and your other goalie's playing. It's not as bad on the morale, but when you're the one standing there, it's terrible. I was down in Michigan last year. My son's team played an exhibition game against them, and I'm like, dude, you guys are gonna get smoked. They got like 3 first rounders on that team. They got a good hockey team. I go, hey, you guys are in for a long night. Sure enough, I think they lost 6-2. But as soon as him and the other goalie split the games, and as soon as the other goalie went in, he lifted up his mask, and it was like, ew, you ugly. And I'm just like, oh, no. The student section was relentless. And I'm like, this is terrible. It's just like, I said, I'm so glad it's not me in there right now.
Does he have plans to try to go all the way or keep following kind of your journey?
You know what? He's probably more determined than I ever was. Like, he's like, he is so determined. But he's getting an education right now. He's doing a great program there at the University of Windsor. And it's funny, I've got 2 boys and they're both goalies, and it's, you kind of cringe at the thought because you know what they're going through, but you just try to keep it light. You try to keep it simple. My older guy played his 5 years at junior, and now he's playing at the University of Windsor. He had a great year last year. He was named first team All-Canadian goalies for Canada. So it was, he had a tremendous year. And, a week after the season, I knew he was crazy when he looked at me and I go, well, first year in the university, you're named first team All-Canadian. I go, what are you doing? How's it feel? He goes, wow, I know what I want to get better at. That's the first thing he says to me. He goes, I know what I want to do this summer to get better. And he's just got that mentality. So, he's got a knock on him, of course, because he's 5'11" and he's considered a small goalie. So I'm like, dude, just play the game. Just play the game. You never know how things happen, right? Like, typically now these goalies are 6'4", 6'5", and then my younger son is up for the OHL draft this year. So, you never know how things go. You have a good year, maybe get drafted, but he's already 2 inches taller than his brother right now. So, his 14-year-old brother is 6'1", and he's 5'11" in university. So he's frustrated by that.
Sounds like a hockey family, man. I love it. Sounds like everybody's involved. I love that. So outside of hockey, Mike, what are you up to these days? What do you do outside of hockey?
Well, I work for a transport company, a trucking transport company here in Ontario. We do refrigerated transport, and I'm the terminal manager. I run the place here in just outside of Kitchener. we're probably one of the largest trucking companies in North America, one of the two largest for refrigerated transport. We transport food to all the grocery stores, all the distribution centers. We're a third party carrier. So we do a lot of that. And yeah, it's, it's a different type of pressure, but no, nonetheless, still pressure there.
Yeah, definitely. Always got to step up in those roles and make sure we do what we're supposed to. Definitely agree. Love it though, man. I love that you're doing great things outside of hockey and used hockey as a, as a tool. I always tell kids that, kids I coach, kids that watch the show, always use sports as a tool to build who you're supposed to be, within your character. So we got just a couple things, Mike, that we're going to get through. And then if there's any links that you want to drop, we'll have you drop them at the end of the show here. And then, like I said, we're going to get you these cards, sir, and we'll get you one of these shirts, courtesy of All Heart Athletics here in Monroe, but they give these shirts out to us each week. So we'll make sure you get one of these as well.
Awesome.
So our Monroe County Student Athletes of the Week. Every week we give out a student athlete. We're actually going to give it out to a position group this week and then a team. So I want to shout out the Carlson football offensive line. Got to give these guys some love. These guys have been producing great running games for several seasons now, at least the last few. Obviously, I coached Amari Carter. Shout out to him in the All-Star game. And now I believe his name is Isaiah Wright. He had a big game at running back. But again, it just seems like these guys on the O-line over at Carlson move people. Got to give them a huge shout out. And then also SMCC Volleyball, who had a big week defeating Grozeal and also New Boston Huron. So shout out to SMCC Volleyball for having a big week here in the county. I also got just want to give a little bit of love tonight to Erie Mason Volleyball right at my own school. They are having a pretty good start to the season. I love seeing it. They did great things in the tournaments to kick off the year. I just love seeing it at our school. Love seeing new coaches come in and change things and do great things. So need to give them love. And also another program that's really shining here. Then I have to give this guy and this team some love is the Monroe football team right here in Monroe, Michigan. So Monroe football just had a huge 58-0 win over Skyline the other night. Coach Reed really has it turned around. They had their Trojan Pride Day and Trojan Pride football game, and it was packed house. Shout out to Carl Ford. He was in the house, MCSN. It was just a great atmosphere, and Monroe football really has turned things around very quickly. Coach Reed's a great human being, great guy, so I do want to give Monroe some love. On this day in sports, in 1920, the NFL is born in Canton, Ohio. So on this day in 1920, it was the start of the NFL. Canton, Ohio, 12 teams paid $100 each to join the American Pro Football Association, which was renamed to the NFL in 1922. So back in that day, you paid $100 to join the NFL. That's a pretty wild number to think about these days. And in 1947, Jackie Robinson is the Rookie of the Year by Sporting News. Obviously, that is a big deal, along with the NFL being formed. So that's our sports on this day for this week. So we are going to drop a few links here. And then, Mike, if there's anything you want to drop on the way out, we'll go ahead and get to that. You can find Kennedy Health and Wellness on Facebook, Instagram, and KennedyHealthWellness.com. Find our friends here at Brain Jerk Entertainment on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And remember, any podcast that you want to watch throughout the week, that's any Brain Jerk podcast content or this podcast on Sundays, you can find this live on Facebook and Instagram on the Brain Jerk Entertainment page. Also, the Kicking It with Coach K also has a Facebook and Instagram. That's where you can find it, just Kicking It with Coach K. You can find me at Coach K1993 on Instagram. Mike, if there's any links you want to drop, go ahead, sir.
No, man, I'm good. I'm just excited to be here and glad I got a chance to talk about, the things that made me happy and things that made me excited when I was a kid growing up. And hope all the young athletes now just, don't give up on your dream. Keep working for it and keep it going.
Great message to end the show, Mike. I'll tell you what, man, we are kind of stepping into, like, before we jump off here, we're kind of stepping into a role of wanting to get a little more not too much away from what we do, because we love hearing stories and different things, but also doing special episodes where we have previews for different sports seasons and everything. Man, it'd be great to have you back on and do a hockey preview with us. You seem super educated on the game, and if you wouldn't mind doing that, man, maybe we could arrange that in a later date.
I would absolutely love that.
Let's do it, man. Let's plan a podcast, NHL preview show, and we'll have you on and we'll talk about it.
I would love it. As long as we have to talk about Babcock and Columbus, would be good.
I appreciate you again, Mike. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your story with us today. Guys, we will be back next week at 7 p.m. sharp. We will see you then.